One of the many elements of any Wellspring course is readings, often online as well as in a required text. There were actually 2 required books for the Deep Questions course. I was particularly taken with what Parisa Parsa had to say about the 5th principle, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process, something we have embraced significantly here with Get Out the Vote. I vote. I have always voted in federal, state, and local elections, as well as here at UUSS. I fully support the Get Out the Vote campaign, but I never considered our 5th principle to be one of the juicier ones, like I consider respect for the international web of all existence of which we are a part. Parisa Parsa, the author, made me think. She wrote, if faith's necessary companion is doubt, democracy's necessary companion is alienation. I'm going to repeat that. If faith's necessary companion is doubt, democracy's necessary companion is alienation. We who keep returning to faith do so because we live steadily with doubt, and we make a choice to live into it and let it deepen our relationship with the sacred. We who live in a democracy are constantly asked to choose between our faith in the abstract ideals of our political system and our doubt that we can affect anything at all. It's the same basic question that is at the heart of all religious journeys. Will I act as if I am connected to something greater, and therefore as if my life and actions are significant? Or will I act as if I am completely separate and isolated from others, and therefore as if my life and actions are of little or no consequence? Later in the piece, she says, while talking about voting at church meetings, freedom of conscience, already having committed to a life of accountability to a community, demands fidelity even in disagreement. I think that's something that UUs have some trouble with. A community to whom we have connected ourselves must be offered the same respect we demand from the community. The opportunity to hear our objection, fear, or pain, and to respond to it according to the dictates of communal bonds. In a healthy community, each individual among us should occasionally be in the minority. That experience promotes spiritual growth, maturity, and a deepened understanding of the costs and rewards of community. Finally, she sums up by writing, voting as the shorthand for taking interest in and ownership of the process by which we live as a community, live our faith, and choose to use our collective power to shape our world in accordance with that faith is a sacrament. Parisa Parsa deepened my understanding of the importance of being in the minority some of the time. I had not considered voting to be a sacramental act before. I love her statement that faith's necessary companion is doubt and democracy's is alienation. These are a few of the many, many thought-provoking and emotion-inducing ideas brought to me by the Deep Questions Wellspring program.
From the passage that Lois read and her personal reflection on it, you may understand that the work in Wellspring involves processing ideas, which takes time. Thoughts are provoked and linger and stew and go along in different directions. I love this kind of thing, but I am not a quick thinker. I found that very often I would still be thinking about our Wellspring discussions and readings throughout the following weeks. Several thoughts gnawed at me, and I was not able to settle them easily. However, each Wellspring meeting is a fresh start with more ideas to process and begins, as many of our UU meetings do, with a check-in. In Wellspring, part of the check-in is always to comment on how things are going with your spiritual practice and your spiritual advisor. I like check-in as a way to get to know people better, and I've really enjoyed getting to know my friends in this group. But the part about the spiritual advisor, I would tend to gloss over. I kept saying, no, I still don't have an advisor. I have friends to talk to. I don't really need an advisor. Those are my famous last words. As time went on, I had more and more thoughts to settle. So, near the end of Wellspring, I decided to try out the advisor route, thinking that I could manage my unfinished thinking by the end of the course. I chose very carefully an advisor. I chose someone who I knew embraced disparate ideas and faith traditions as I do, and who was, of course, experienced in Wellspring and dealing with the various ways of thinking about the topics addressed in the sessions. This is key, really, because experience in any field gives you a bigger knowledge base to pull from to reach a wide variety of individuals and particular circumstances and ideas. I just had a few sessions at the end of Wellspring with my spiritual advisor, but it was very helpful to me to finish my thought processes and shepherd me through the end of Wellspring. Choosing to have a spiritual advisor is an option. It is an option you have to enrich your Wellspring experience.
In focusing on this presentation, it seemed to me that the two principles most embodied in the Wellspring experience are the third principle, acceptance of one another and encouragement for spiritual growth in our congregations, and the fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. My spiritual journey has been a long one and often lonely. I was brought up in the Baptist church and was very religious as a child, but became an atheist at age of 13. I found no support of any kind from my church, my family, or my peers for this change or the spiritual challenges that had led me to it. Over the years, as I searched for truth and meaning, I remember saying to a friend when I was in my 20s that I wished there was a religion that recognized the spiritual aspects of human beings without requiring me to adhere to a set of beliefs. It was only several decades later that I discovered that Unitarian Universalism could fulfill this heartfelt wish. I am deeply grateful to UU in general and Wellspring in particular for providing the acceptance and encouragement I longed for. In our small Wellspring groups, we explore together, the spiritual principles and practices that guide our lives. We work to deepen these practices, and we share our concerns, difficulties, and progress with others in the group. This sharing is very personal and individual. One of the deep questions for me has always been, do I belong? Where do I belong? Who are my people? And how do I find them? As my people, are my people ones who share my beliefs or my particular spiritual practices? Are they the ones who share my political views, education, gender expression, sexual orientation, or geographical location? My experience in Wellspring teaches me that I belong where I can honestly share about my spiritual life,
where I can listen to others who do the same, and where I am accepted for who I am. This experience of honest sharing with others who may not share my particular beliefs or practices was a profound one for me, for I had been seeking it since I was very young. I came to deeply value members of the group for their honesty and humility and their commitment to exploring truthfully their own inner lives and the courage to share openly. I came to deeply respect our differences as much as the ways in which we are alike. One of the exercises we were assigned as part of the Wellspring program was to interview someone about their spiritual journey, asking only open ended questions and just listening without judgment. I took this assignment as an opportunity to connect with members of my extended family. These family members are primarily related to my sister, and I did not know any of them prior to my moving to New York from California 5.5 years ago. These family members all belong to the same fundamentalist church except for one, who is Roman Catholic. I have often felt a huge gap in my ability to connect with them, to know them, and for them to know and accept me, based on our religious and spiritual differences. I asked for volunteers to meet with me for the interview, and 3 of them agreed. Each of the 3 shared openly, did not try to convert or save me, and shared some deep spiritual experiences which I could understand and relate to. Doing this has brought us all closer and enriched our relationships. The harder part for me is that they want to reverse the process and hear from me. Taking that risk is one of the next steps for me in my spiritual journey. This process of listening and sharing about our spiritual journey is the core for me of the Wellspring program. It encourages spiritual growth and has aided me in my search for truth and meaning.
As Barbara mentioned that we sometimes get some assignments as part of the Wellspring program, I'm going to talk about another assignment that we had. So while exploring our second UU principle, we affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. We were asked to observe ourselves for a few days or up to a week and see when we felt compassion and when we didn't. My husband, Jamie, refers to me as an empath, and I can't really disagree with him. I feel other people's pain deeply. I even have to censor the television that we watch sometimes because I'll be watching, and if somebody is embarrassed, I'm mortified. Or if a couple is having a fight, I suddenly am concerned about the stability of our own relationship. It's really excessive. So I thought, oh, I'm going to feel compassion easily because and that would follow naturally for an empath, but it doesn't always, it turns out. For me, fear, helplessness, overwhelm, anger, self righteousness, and a million other human emotions and thoughts can stop me from helping other people in pain. After looking at all the times that I did and didn't feel compassion, I found that compassion came most easily for me when I could find innocence in the other person. For example, my son Charlie is 4 and he stands on a wheeled toy and he falls flat on his face. And obviously, I feel so much compassion for him. He's innocent. He doesn't know how physics works, and learning is startling and hard. I can even go levels deep and feel compassion for a murderer in jail because I can understand the systems and experiences that would lead somebody to those actions. But in all of those situations, there is some knowledge or resources or privilege that I believe I have that the others don't. So compassion is easy. Where I find the edge of my compassion is when I can't, in my own completely biased mind, find their innocence. When I feel they know better or have resources and support to avoid the hardship. A simple example, I have a close family member who does not pay attention to the advice of his doctors, particularly post-surgical directions. The doctor says, stay off your feet, and the next day he's on a ladder, and then he has a long and painful recovery from his injuries. I don't find it hard to be kind and to go through the motions of compassion, but do I really feel it? Do I really see his pain as my own pain? Is it enough to go through the motions? Kind of a fake it till you make it policy. But what about when I can't go through the motions? As our country has become more divided in recent years, I've butted up against the edge of my compassion more and more. I can have empathy for what it feels like to be afraid, to feel like your way of life is threatened. But I find it hard to even go through the motions of compassion when I feel that their fears are unfounded or oppressive or hateful. Should I be feeling compassion? I want to be a person who builds bridges, and I believe that compassion is the best tool for us to bring people together. But how do I move past all of those edges? For now, I'm trying to just pay attention to them. Each time I come up to an edge, I'm trying to sit with that feeling and be honest with myself about whether I'm being judgy or if that situation is so complicated that showing compassion really is untenable. There have been times in that practice when I found myself being stingy, and challenged myself to reach out and move past it. And at times, when I just can't make it happen, I know I've investigated it and can be sure it's founded in being aligned to my values. And sometimes I'm still too tired and annoyed to try. Like all things UU, the answer to all of our Wellspring deep questions, it turned out, was also more questions. Questions that I've pondered over and over again and explored many times. I think I come to some epiphany and make changes only to have it challenge me again. I heard someone recently describe the journey to enlightenment or self-improvement not as being a road, but more like a spiraling path up a mountain. So each time you come around, you're looking at the same thing, just hopefully from a slightly higher perspective. If this kind of spiraling, question-filled journey sounds interesting to you, please consider signing up for UU Wellspring. We're not currently planning to offer the introductory sources class this fall, but if there's enough interest, we can consider offering it in the spring, and we'll certainly be offering it next fall. And for those of you who have already done a sources class and are ready for another spin around the mountain, we will be offering Spiritual Ancestors, a Wellspring Advanced class starting in late September. Participants explore their own spiritual histories more deeply through exploration of the ancestors who have inspired and influenced them. They reflect on those people whose theology, art, discoveries, ideas, and work in the world shape their own faith and our Unitarian Universalist faith. They're also examining questions of legacy, death and dying, and telling our stories in expansive and healing ways. Please see me after the service if you're interested. You can also sign up using the link in circuits.